Welcome to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.net. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. Thanks for joining us this week. So change, kind of hard, right? We struggle with it sometimes when it's thrust upon us. So to help you navigate the uncertain waters of change, I have a free gift for you. So sometimes it really boils down to our mindset and how we see ourselves or how we think we're perceived by others. So to help you with your communication with other humans, right, as you navigate change, I have a free gift called my communication style assessment. You get 2 reports. One, your natural superpowers, man. It's how you show up. It's how people see you. It's a beautiful thing, and we want to be aware and leverage it. Flip side, we have the blind spot, and you get a report with your lowest style so that you understand the type of people that are different in how they communicate and then what you need to do to connect with them on that deeper level. So go to whitmanassociates.com/CSA, and that is my free gift to you. And I do hope it helps you as you navigate change. Now, my motivational quote today is actually a Chinese proverb, and it says, "If you get up one more time than you fall, you will make it through." So, as I look back over the past 20 years being in business, I often reflect and think about really the many ups and downs that I've had. And after COVID, my business personally was decimated, and I had to rebuild and rethink my entire business model, which now in hindsight is a good thing, but at the time, devastation. And frustration was another part of the emotions that I think I felt. And other times you get super energized, right, as you learn things. So you're going from, I feel like a ping pong ball at times, right, where from frustration to this energized of learning new knowledge. Again, 40-year working career, I know that ups and downs are inevitable. That doesn't mean that it's ever easy to navigate and move forward. And burnout for me was always, I felt like just a step away. And I oftentimes felt like I was losing the battle. So help is on the way for anyone feeling that level of frustration, overwhelm, and uncertainty. My guest, and I should say brilliant guest today, is Jessica Fearnley. Jessica is a business coach who helps women build 7-figure consulting firms. Now, she specializes in transition from 6 to 7 figures in turnover, and is an advocate for earning more by working less. Amen, sister. And Jessica has a bachelor's and master's degree from Nottingham University and is a career background in project management, business planning, and business development in both the public and the private sector. Now, it's December of 2019. She was named as one of LinkedIn's top voices for entrepreneurs and small businesses. And I have the pleasure and honor of having her on my show. So Jess, thanks so much for coming and being on and sharing your zones of genius.
Thank you, Connie. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Yes, always a pleasure. And we're just going to have a great conversation with great content, because I think that this is an issue. We're working more, maybe not necessarily earning more, and that's just not okay. So how do we flip that script, right? That's what our conversation's about. So
yeah,
first thing I always like to do, we use these phrases, burnout, like I used in my intro, but let's define for today's conversation. Tell us your experience of burnout so that we can ground the conversation in what we're actually talking about.
Sure. So yeah, when I went through burnout, I was 27, 28. So this was 12, 13 years ago. And I had always been sort of earmarked as someone who had a lot of potential. So in school, I never found it particularly hard. I was that annoying person who was like, oh, got an A, didn't really try. Awesome. And so I kind of sailed through school, and I got to university, and I was near the top of my class. I was very conscious that I wasn't at the top of my class, and I knew that like a first class degree was within reach for me. And so it started this kind of intense anxiety of like, oh, I think I can do it, but I don't know if I can, and I have to try. And so I think the seeds of the problem for me started in university. And I think that can be common, like when you've had like an educational experience of not finding it super hard in school and sort of just sailing through. When it got to university, I was like, this demands so much more from me. And my course was very kind of self-led. I didn't have a lot of tutorial hours at all. I think I had 6 hours a week for most of my time at university. And I spent the rest of the time doing my own research. And to be honest, absolutely loving it. But there was this kind of like pressure. And I remember when I was doing my finals at university, and I was waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, just so stressed. I was like, I have to revise a bit more for my exams. And it didn't feel like this really kind of fun, engaging thing. It felt like this really overwhelming, like stress pressure that I just could not get away from. And then I went through my exams. I got my first class degree. I was like, yay. I stayed on to do a master's and I got distinction at that. But I think what I now see looking back is that I set up this pattern of like very, very hard work and then a very good result, but like at a very high personal cost to me.
Yeah.
So I went from university into a career in London. I had the most amazing office. We had an open plan office in a building called Millbank Tower, which is on the north bank of the River Thames. So you could see like the whole of London. We were on like the 20th floor. It was amazing. But I did not thrive in that job. And again, it was everything on paper was there. It was stuff that I liked doing. I was sort of picked out to be mentored. I was being given opportunities. Like I could see my whole kind of future there really mapping out. But this kind of stress and this pressure, it kept kind of rearing its head. And so during that time, I actually developed, and I think this happened while I was still at university, but I developed irritable bowel syndrome. And it was, I spent all my time trying to suppress it and trying to be like, this is not happening. I am fine. I have a lot of potential. I'm going to do a lot of stuff here. Don't get in my way, body. And it was this real conflict looking back between me and kind of how I was doing emotionally and physically. And basically, I remember this, it was February, so almost to the day, it was February 2010. And something in me broke, and I'd been forcing myself to go to work for about 2 years at this point, just really not coping.
Wow.
And it was, I saw something on LinkedIn this week, and it was kind of saying, there's this spiral when it comes to burnout. And so what happens first is that you stop kind of doing your hobbies, you stop seeing your friends, you stop doing anything outside of work, and then you stop work because you just can't. And I looked at it and I was like, that describes exactly what happened to me. So I just reached this point of like body refusal. And it was like, I wanted to go to work. I was like, I'm fine. There's nothing wrong. I'm going to keep going. And really, I was not okay. And it was just a point of absolute rock bottom for me. From that point on, like I was really traumatized by the whole thing. Like I used to have nightmares that I had to go back to work, and I was like, what am I going to do? I don't think I can do this. So I really do see that as kind of almost like the ground zero of my old life, and feeling, yeah, like that everything that I'd worked towards had just completely fallen apart around me. And I was like, I don't have a career. I don't feel like I even have a purpose. So that was absolute the lowest point, I think, for me.
It's so, as you're saying this, I know my listeners are thinking, oh my God, she's describing me. And what a hell of a way to live a life, because here, right, you see the potential, you're brilliant, right? All of these assets that you have, and yet we're miserable at the end of the day. And that's just not okay. And it's funny, as you were speaking, I knew exactly what you were going to say. My little guy is 22 now. He just graduated last May of 2021. And he was a sophomore, had changed majors, right? A couple of things, typical things that the college student, but he started getting issues with his stomach. So we took him to, a doctor, and a gastro doctor, and irritable bowel. I'm like, what? Like what? So finally one day I said to him, tell me what it's being triggered because of stress. Listen, I understand, because he's another one, super smart. High school came super easy, did well in college, did really well in college, but had to put a little bit more effort out. And this is what he said to me, Jess, which I was like, oh my God, stop it. Because my husband and I paid for our kids' education. And I don't know what the cost is in England, but in the United States, it's, it's 120, 130 grand for a degree, and, times two. And so he said, I see my friends, some of them are paying, some of them, their parents are paying, but you're paying this money. Like, I have to get A's. He felt it was his responsibility. Now, my husband and I never said that. And as soon as he verbalized it, I said, well, stop it. I go, I'll take a C, because, and I said to him, here's the thing. I know you're not just going to accept a C, because that's not who you are, the person, right? But you got to stop thinking I have to get A's because mom and dad are footing the bill here. And I says, and let me tell you something, if you were out partying and you didn't give a crap, we wouldn't be having the same conversation.
Yeah.
But that you're driving yourself to having the irritable bowel syndrome, that's ridiculous. Nothing is worth that kind of stress, that you're putting distress in your body. Like, let's think about this. And he still deals with anxiety today. So everything you're describing, I don't think it's an age. I don't think it's, oh, well, at this point in your career, you can expect burnout. It could be at any age, any situation, because stress, people take on the stress, like he felt. And to me, it was a little bit of, I have to get a perfect score because of the money you're spending, right? We seek this perfection, like you were saying, control, right? We're really, control is an illusion. Perfectionism is an illusion. Yet when you're intelligent and things come easy to you, I think it's a learned behavior of, well, I'll always get the perfect score. So it's these little experiences that I think,
relate to that so much, actually, that desire, like, give me any situation, tell me there's a test, I want to get 100%. And so I actually have to consciously control that in myself. And I think in the years that have been kind of since I went through that burnout experience, which for me was very extreme, I think a real thing has been like, I don't have to get the A star. Sometimes I wish that in life they just gave you a grade, because I'd be like, give me an A. And it's just, I think coming into business so much, you kind of think, I want to do it perfectly. I want to do everything. Like, one of the big things that I've encountered in my business in the last 8 years is my desire to do everything and take over the whole world and be back in time for dinner. And so a big thing that I have learned, and I think I'm going to be learning this lesson all my life, but it's like, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to do everything perfectly. You should not try and do everything perfectly. It's starting to enjoy the journey. But business is not a scorecard. It's not like a grading situation. You don't get money in your business or be successful in your business by being the best. You have to be good enough. And I think sometimes the bar for that is so much lower than we instinctively feel it should be.
but think about that. We go into business because and I'm going to just use my own thinking, I'm an overachiever. If you tell me I can, I'm going to show you I can, right?
Exactly.
So it's but I think that's why we go into business, because well,
nothing else can really contain us, because we have this drive and this, like, I was told in all of my career jobs, can you just slow things down a little bit? Because, like, you're making other people feel bad or look bad.
Yep.
And what I love about my business is, like, I can go as fast as I like. And so I think it's really important not to sort of take that ambition and that drive, which can be a really constructive thing. But I think it's knowing how to keep it in balance so it doesn't kind of destroy us in the process. But I feel a completely different person, and I think I've found a real sense of purpose, because I can channel this drive that I've always had into my business, into doing something bigger than just my career job or whatever responsibilities I'm allowed to do or whatever it is. I think some of us, we are just entrepreneurs, and we need to live that out, and we need to kind of have a big enough context to cope with the amount of drive that we have.
Agree. And yeah, I agree with that. And do you find, because you deal, I know, mostly with women, but do you find that, and maybe you don't know the answer to this specifically, but knowing women, business owners, right? We know we have the potential, otherwise we wouldn't even have attempted to open a business, right? It's not, well, maybe some people are crazy, but I think most business owners, you're going in because you have some skill that you can leverage, right? And sell and make money off of, whatever that is. Do you find that knowing you have that potential, right, that type A personality, do you find it more difficult for women to navigate that, or you just deal with women so you could talk from that framework? Either way is okay with me from a question standpoint.
I think there's a lot more structures in place to cope with men who start businesses. And definitely, if you look at the kind of the coaches available online, there are more coaches for men who deal with communities almost exclusively with men in them. I think we are getting to a point where there are a good number of like coaches for women, communities for women. But I think what still frustrates me a little bit is that this top 1%. And women often end up in, the multi-level marketing businesses or a hobby business that is kind of loss making. And it's this kind of perpetual poverty that women can find themselves in, even when they're business owners. Whereas women at a high level of business, there are many, many more men who have that kind of business, particularly like in consulting. There are more men who do consulting and do it successfully than women. And I do think that there's a real kind of confidence, or a need for confidence, and a need to kind of have that awakening almost. And I feel like that is really something that has happened to me throughout the course of my 30s. So I'm 39 now. And like I said, a lot of this happened to me when I was 27, but in between kind of that point and starting my own business when I was 31, I feel like this real kind of, what am I going to do with my life now? And for a while, I just felt like, I don't know if I can do anything. Like, I think I'm on the scrap heap at 28. How does that happen?
Yeah.
But it was this real kind of reassessment of actually, who am I as a person? What am I skilled at? And it was a really transitional thing of going to work for a small business and then realizing, I think that I want to have my own business. And I had my own multi-level marketing business selling cards like during that season as well. And I was starting to get this feel for like work can be a different shape.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be 9 to 5, but I found it frustrating kind of in the multi-level marketing world, because I was like, it is impossible to make a profit. And I just remember quite early on in my business, I had a single month and I was like, I made more this month than I did in 4 years of my multi-level marketing business. I think I've been doing this wrong. But it was just a really clear kind of, this is the business that I want to have. But I think even when you get on that path and on that journey of having your own business, for me, it's been a massive growth. There's been massive, massive mindset work needed in order to get to the point that I am now, and even kind of dare to talk about things like consulting businesses, 7-figure turnover, all that kind of stuff. You have to be so courageous, I think, as a woman, to feel confident in this space and to even set out on the journey. So that's one of the things that I really look back on over my 30s. And I just think it's almost like I can see myself. I've been climbing up this mountain, having no idea at points where I was actually aiming for or where I would end up. Whereas I think now, age 39, I'm sort of at a point where I'm like, this mountain is awesome and I'm just going to stay on it. And it doesn't matter if I know where it's going or not, because look where it's taken me so far.
Absolutely. Trust it. You trust yourself over time. That's just what happens with age. The other thing I'm giggling at. So I started my business when I was 39. I had 2 babies at home like you, and 20 years ago. Well, now I'm 60. So 21 years ago, but it was interesting because 20 years ago when I turned 40, you have to remember something like you're 10, almost 10 years in business, right? 30. I'm going to just say 30 to that 40. You're not that you're 40 yet. I'm not making you old.
I don't mind. I don't mind. I've decided my 40s are going to be my best decade yet. So I'm pretty excited about it.
That and you're leading me to what the point I'm trying to make. So that decade, so think about it, 10 years before that, when you were 20, I was 40. And all of a sudden, spirituality, having conversations about mindset, right? Talking about that shift, that energetic shift, we're energetic beings. That was not ever right in our vocabulary. Probably was, but it was so quiet that nobody knew about it. Now I hit 39, start my business, and all of a sudden in my inbox is all about mindset, spirituality, and not quote unquote spirituality, but law of attraction and all of these things.
Yeah, just that acknowledgement of energy and
and
what are we thinking about, what are we attracting? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly right. So as a business owner now, right, with not a steady paycheck, I became super mindful of the energy I was was emitting and receiving and all of those things. So 20 years I've been on this journey, and it's all real and it's all energetic. And I know people poo-poo it. Like I have gems all over my house because I believe in the energetic properties, right, of the earth and Mother Nature and all of those things. But it took me 20 years to get here. So here's my thing, what you're saying, that in your 30s, that revelation of we know who we are. I think my experience was similar to that, Jess. So here's the thing, the 40s, confidence went up. Now I was in my business, right? You have financial success, financial independence. I was able to spend a ton of time with my kids. Life was on my terms. So I was building a life and building a business, right? That was my 40s.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my 50s, you're in sync. You have a huge network. Things become a little bit easier because people trust you. They know you. They've known you for all of this time. And now I just turned 60 and I said to my husband, this is, I don't plan on retiring anytime soon for sure. But I said, this next decade is going to be my best, because not only do I have all of that 40 years of experience with my sales expertise, coaching, all of that stuff, right? All of those skills. But now at 60, I'm wiser. So it's not even about, and I'm still learning new skills. So please don't think that I've stopped growing from that perspective. But now at 60, it's a different level of confidence, because now I have wisdom. And here's the important piece. I know how much I don't know, and it's a lot. Whereas before I thought, I got this. I'm good at business. I'm good at this. I'm good at that. Now I'm thinking, wow, I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that. So all of a sudden you understand your strengths and you what's the word? You embrace them. But on the flip side, I'm wise enough to know I have many, many blind spots yet to learn. So it's just interesting. Each decade you will see, you will reiterate, your business will reiterate because of your own experience. My point is also you're ahead of the game because you've been dealing with this already for a decade and you're only 39. You see what I mean? So
yeah,
it's wonderful. Well, it's just a wonderful time to be a business owner.
Yeah. And like it really kind of, I really relate to that, Connie, because we're rebranding my business at the moment, because I still have the original wording on my website from like my very first website that is set up. And like, it's fine, like it does the job, but like when we rewrite it is going to be amazing. But like when I've changed the kind of visuals on the website a few times in the last 8 years. And like at the moment they're beautiful. They're very pink. They're very like floral. They're very non-threatening. And like, let me tell you, the new color scheme, it is in your face. It's going to be like bold colors, lots of colors, not being kind of muted, not being like, oh, excuse me, I have a thought about this. It's really kind of stepping into that power that I think you feel more and more, don't you, when you feel like you're on the right path and you feel like you are trusted as an expert in your field. It's very validating.
Yeah. And I think the other thing with that too, Jess, is that we're more capable of asking questions to fill those blind spots. And that just, again, comes with age and business growth. Although there are a lot smarter people out there than me, for sure. I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, but I think I know when I feel a blind spot, like I did not understand that, I will ask questions. I don't mean to be ignorant. I don't know that. Can you tell me more? I think this might be relevant for me. I didn't even know it existed out there. So all of a sudden, I think you hear those opportunities that maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't even have paused for. But that's the growth and rebranding after 8 years. At 20 years, I've rebranded twice. I just rebranded last year. So it's never settling and thinking, well, I'm done, because it doesn't work that way. We're never done. Right? Another question for you. So this journey really debilitated in your 20s with university, and then, doing the business that you thought that would be the way, feeling very empowered. Was there other things that you had to do to move from burnout really to this more healthy place, not only for your business financially, but for yourself, for your soul, your body? So was there a path to do, because I know people are listening and going, okay, great. How do I do this? Right.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the big things, like, and it might sound like a bit of a paradox, but for me, it was just starting to be like, I cannot bullet point my way out of burnout. So it's, you're sitting there being like, I'm really driven. What do I do? Tell me how to fix this. And like, I think I needed some time. And Brené Brown talks about this. She calls it a wilderness experience. But I went through this burnout experience. Like when it happened, there was no word for burnout. So people would say, "So what do you do?" And I'd be like, "I do nothing." And they were like, "What?" And I didn't have a word to explain what had happened to me. And it was only sort of maybe 3 or 4 years down the line from that I remember reading a book about burnout, and I was like, "Oh, this is what happened to me." So like, I think it was almost just like this wilderness time of just being like, I'm at ground zero. I sort of feel like everything in my life up to this point has led to a massive anticlimax. Like it was probably about
Yes.
7 months before I could even think, what will I actually do with myself? So I spent about 7 months in bed just watching documentaries and just being like, I just need to recover. Like my body was in complete exhaustion. I had quite bad anxiety and depression at the time, as you can probably imagine. But again, wasn't super experienced. Like I didn't even realize that I had anxiety until I was 27. And when I started to understand that, I looked back on almost everything that had happened in my life and I was like, you had debilitating anxiety the whole time. Like, how did we not notice this? So I think it was a real combination of giving myself that rest and space and just having a period where it's like, there are no expectations on me at all. But like, it's never the case of like, and then I've figured it all out and I got a really good diet and a really good exercise plan. And then I was completely perfect from that point on. It was like a series of like getting myself into like friendships that didn't have enough boundaries and then feeling like, oh, I've overcommitted, like I got myself into a series of kind of obligation situations that like, looking back, it was like, this is me applying my high drive again to stuff and still misfiring and just being like, I still have stuff to learn. So part of it was almost like giving up on trying to fix my burnout and just like plodding on for a little while. But then because I'm kind of like this, and I imagine that a lot of people listening are as well, it's kind of wherever you put me, like little opportunities just ping up. And it's funny because I look back now and I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. Like, what a lucky person. But then at the time I was just like, oh, and this person has given me this opportunity and I'm probably going to be rubbish at it. So what's the point? And so, this negative self-talk. So I think that has been, and that is, again, it's a lifelong lesson for me to like and practice a big part of what I do in my mindset work when like I'm really feeling it and I'm just like, I just feel like everything is awful, even though you know that it's not. It's like sitting down and working through what that negative voice is telling me. Because I think before my burnout experience, I just used to listen to that and take what it said as gospel truth. Whereas now I listen to that and then I kind of CBT it, I talk back to it and I'm like, that is not true. That did not happen. You are amazing. And, it's almost like these two versions of myself. And a lot of the work that I do with my clients actually is around kind of finding your next level self. And
Yep.
I think that sometimes it's like if you're in a situation and you're really feeling the mindset and you know that you're kind of up leveling, and we know that we're up leveling because we can feel like everything is just awful and everything around us is unbearable. And it's like something in me is broken. It's like, don't panic, you're up leveling. But a big thing that you can actually do when you're stuck in that is start to like consciously map out who your next level self actually is and almost like look at her and say to yourself, what would she tell me to do in this situation? So I think it's a real combination. Like I feel like, today in my present life, we went through a very hard year for all kinds of reasons last year as a family. And the trauma of that is still kind of something that I'm processing and working through. But like in January, and yeah, we're in February, aren't we? But like in the last 6 weeks, I lost 13 pounds because I started a healthy eating diet and I was doing some yoga as well and walking my dog. And so just very simple things like that, but it has to be done at the right time. Like I didn't go through burnout and then go on a diet straight away and sort my life out. I think I went through a kind of grieving phase of like, I can just eat what I like and it's fine. And we're going to sort this out at some point. But it's like when you get that energetic moment, which I think we do get, that little thing that goes ping, I think I'm ready to try something else. Ping, I think I'm ready for the diet. But I wanted to do it in a really sort of gentle way. It hasn't been, well, in a way it has been quite extreme because I didn't really drink anyway, but I've cut out caffeine and I've cut out sugar and I've cut out carbs. And I think basically I'm too old to digest carbs. That seems to be what the problem is. But like, it's doing it kind of out of love for myself. Like I want to have good energy. I want to feel well, and I want to feel happy and healthy, rather than you need to lose weight. You are not enough, you know? And I think that kind of doing stuff through kindness and self-compassion, rather than like forcing myself because I don't make the grade right now. I think that has been a massive shift. And me of 10 years ago wouldn't have known how to do that.
But what great advice. And I hope everybody just heard that, because it's being gentle with yourself. And I'm tangible. I love visual examples. So thinking about, I'm not good enough right now for whatever reason, right? Because maybe you don't have the skill yet and you're in school, you're learning, or you take an online class, right? If you're in business, I'm always looking at marketing stuff. I'm sales, I'm not marketing, right? You know, you and I have talked about this. But the point I'm making is when we're not perfect, and again, perfection's an illusion, but when we're not skilled at XYZ, we're quick to put ourselves down, right? That negative record player starts playing really, really loud. So I love that. Be gentle with yourself, turn the volume down, do one little thing, and look at your future self and say, am I on the right track? Is this what you'd be doing? Right? Almost looking for guidance, because the answers are within us. We just have to pause, ask, know what we're asking, right? And then wait for that response. So I love that idea of looking to the future self, because it's tangible, and saying, okay, this is what I think the next step is. And then sitting quietly and just waiting for that response, right? So that, you know, intuitively, we know in our intuition, it is a good step. It's not a good step, depending on what we're trying to build. But being gentle, I hope everyone heard that, because we are not gentle with ourselves. And I'll just share, I took a class during the holidays. And one of the last class, they asked us to bring a picture of ourselves of when we were a child. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I'm going to share it. You have to go to YouTube to see this, guys, but I'm holding up a picture of me as a baby. Can you see that, Jess? Is that in the...
That is so gorgeous.
Isn't that
I love
cute?
that picture.
So, and I keep it here. See, notice it was in hand's reach. It's just me doing the airplane on a table, right, guys? When I was a little kid, I was probably about maybe 9 months old. But the point of it is I keep it here because I thought, wow, what a great message. We all have negative record players. So when I'm beating myself, you didn't do that. That wasn't good enough. Reiterate that. Why didn't you meet that deadline for myself, right? It's my business. I can extend deadlines if I want, but if I miss a deadline, I feel like I failed me. Why? It's ridiculous, right? I could do it tomorrow if for whatever reason, you know, recently we've had issues with my mom and your time gets spent there. So this can't get done here, but we beat ourselves up. We'll work till 11 o'clock at night. Not healthy. So you have all of these things, this negative information that feeds us. I look at that picture and I think, what would you say to baby Connie? And would you be talking to her like that? And immediately it's like, no, I would never talk to a child that way. Then why is it okay to talk to ourselves that way? And that's that gentle piece that you were talking about that I think is just, we have to, I love that word, gentle, be gentle with self. And I don't think we're good at beating ourselves up, not with the gentle and the self-care and self-love and all those things. We're out of time. Guys, listen, Jess and I could talk for hours.
I really feel like we could.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we just hit the tip of the iceberg, right? The first layer. I'm going to give you information, and I promise I will put this in the show notes for you. But if you have specific questions, please go to Jessica's email, which is info@jessicafearnley.com. And I will put that in the show notes. And the website is jessicafearnley.com. Additionally, because she's a wonderful friend, she's giving free gifts for you. And I will put that into the show notes too. It's 6 elements of a 7-figure business. Briefly, it's a PDF. Just briefly talk, because people love this PDF, Jess, before we sign out.
Yeah, so it lays out my framework of basically the things that you need, the 6 elements that you need to be in place in order to transition your business from 6 figures, which a lot of us kind of do on instinct and like holding it together with paper clips and sellotape behind the scenes, to actually having like a 7-figure empire that you can actually step back from. You're not involved in the day-to-day running. Every dollar doesn't have to be earned by your blood, sweat, and tears. Yes. It's a real journey to get from, I can do everything myself, to like, I am the CEO and there are people who make things happen, so I can step away. And so what it does, it lays out those 6 elements. And yes, if you're interested in finding out more about that, do download it and reach out to me, because I'd love to talk to you about it.
I love it. I love it. I love these resources that my guests provide. And I just appreciate our conversation today. And thank you for sharing your story, because through our stories is how people can learn and apply change to their life. Right. But we need those stories to think that that's possible for me. Right. And so I
Yeah.
do appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing, because I think that's important, and it allows people to tap into that honesty. Right.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I have to say, like, that story, it was my biggest secret for quite a while. But the first time I ever told it in a coaching group, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is not something to be ashamed of. This is actually my most powerful story of like what has been going on in my life. So I do actually love to share it with people. And I hope that your listeners have enjoyed hearing about it and found it really resonates in the right way.
Yeah. And one last thing, Jess, that you kind of just said, and I believe that we have these gifts, right? And your gift is helping people scale, right? And get that infrastructure in place, so you're not killing yourself working 24/7. Right. My zone of genius is helping people make more money without really more effort, just building skill, right? And how you have your sales conversation. The effort's the same. You just have to practice. And right, that's my zone of genius. I feel like as business owners, when you have that really beautiful zone of genius and gift, and I do think it's a gift, that we have to pay it forward. And it's our responsibility to share that knowledge,
Mm,
because, to take it to our grave, that's not cool. That's just not, it's not okay. Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think sharing is where we pay it forward as well. And it's okay to make a living doing that, but you're paying it forward to help people make a bigger living, too. Right. It's all about the tides rising. I think it was Roosevelt who said it, right? The boat rises with the tide. Let's have all the boats rise with the tide. And that's kind of my philosophy and where I come from. And I know you come from that same
Yeah,
perspective. So
absolutely.
yeah. Thank you so much again. And thank you all for joining me every week. And you've been listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.net. I truly am honored that you tune in weekly and listen to what my guests and I talk about, and tools and ideas and strategies and tips that we give you. For me, information is a wonderful thing as long as you take it and apply it to your life, whatever that means to you. So Jess gave so many wonderful examples. I hope I gave some good examples, the couple that I shared today. Use them, apply them, and watch the results that happen in your life. It is magical. You have to take the information and do something with it. So again, I'm honored that you're here, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. I wish you a really inspired week full of just beautiful things. So take care, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate you.